Well, Wardah Khalid is joining us now from Houston. She is a policy analyst with a focus on the Middle East and Muslim American issues. Hi there, good to see you again.
Hi.
Tell us, what message does this send?
Well, this sends a message that the world is not going to stand by while the U.S. Stands by and promotes this Israeli occupation, including of East Jerusalem as their capital. And so 128 member countries voted for this resolution, which condemned Trump's decision to do so. And so it overwhelmingly shows that even allies like the UK, France, Egypt are not going to stand by for this. And so it puts the U.S. in a very difficult position, and one that it likes to be an honest broker in the deal, but it seems like other countries aren't buying that.
So let's talk about Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, who said Washington would remember these countries, what they did, their disrespect against America by voting against this. What kind of threat do you feel like this really is?
Yeah, Nikki Haley also said things like that they're going to be taking names on this vote. And for me, this is personally, what I think of, this is not Fight Club. This is the United Nations, an international institution devoted to peace, diplomacy, security. And so for her to say comments like that is just antagonistic and not promoting the peace process at all. And so other countries, when they're hearing words like that and these threats, they're not going to respond in an amenable fashion. And clearly they were not intimidated today when they gave a vote that so overwhelmingly rejected Trump's decision and to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem and then also recognizing it as Israel's capital.
So if we break it down, 22 of the 28 EU countries voted for it. Let's see, 35 abstained. Another 21 delegations were absent from the vote, suggesting that Trump's warning over funding cuts and Israel's lobbying may have had some type of effect. Do you think that we can look along these lines and figure out who was getting what from the United States as to how they voted exactly?
Yes and no. I mean, for instance, Egypt is the one that drafted this resolution, and they voted in favor of it. And they receive billions of dollars of U.S. funding. And so I think it really just depends on the principle of the matter, where these countries are in their specific situations. But as we saw, they were so overwhelmingly voting against it. And some of these are countries that have participated in the coalition against ISIS, for instance. So these are strong partnerships that the U.S. needs in order to advance its policy in the Middle East. And so clearly they were sending a signal that they are ready to move against the U.S. if it comes to it. And so they are going to stand by their principles and not stand for such a decision that goes against the UN Security Council Resolution 242, which overwhelmingly, unanimously, the UN voted that Israel must abide by the 1967 agreement and not occupy East Jerusalem.
Is it a referendum on Trump's foreign policy as a whole?
It could be an indication of Trump's foreign policy as a whole. We've seen Trump say a lot of America first, that America doesn't answer to anyone. But the fact of the matter is that foreign policy cannot be conducted in a vacuum. Other players do have their own interests. Other players are going to make moves as well. And so they're going to respond when we do any type of move. And so when you're doing something that goes against the United Nations, something that the international community overwhelmingly condemns, then there are going to be consequences. So that's why I'm saying when I talked about earlier about the ISIS coalition or other coalitions that could come in the future, there isn't going to come a time when the U.S. isn't going to need somebody's help at some point. And so we really need to be cognizant of that. And so this could be dangerous for our foreign policy. We're still dealing with Syria, the conflict going on there. There's other conflicts going on in the world. North Korea is always a constant threat now. And we're not going to be able to handle those conflicts on our own. And so it's very important to make sure that we're still embedded in the international system. And so this could be a problem for Trump's foreign policy.